Sydney is a dream destination for many international students, but rising living costs, especially soaring accommodation rents, are putting intense financial pressure on them. For some, staying here means sacrificing essentials or working extra hours just to afford rent. In this story, we explore how their rising costs are impacting students' lives. Student accommodation in Sydney has many benefits. Nice buildings, beautiful gardens, and easy-to-use study rooms. It also suffers than other types of housing, which helps students feel secure. But with these benefits, the price keeps going up. Sydney student accommodation costs have soared, reaching $579 per week in 2024, according to CBRE reporting. With a high demand, service reports Sydney prices are now higher than other Australian cities, and the gap is still to grow. Professor Parson will help us understand why student accommodation costs are rising.
There are some university campuses in small towns and in the outer suburbs and so on, but UNSW, UTS, University of Sydney, there are a lot of international students studying at those institutions, just as there are at universities near to the centre of Melbourne, and all of those people, if they're going to live within reach of those universities, are going to need to find housing in pressured housing markets in places where rents are way above the national average.
In order to save living costs, many students choose to spend more time on campus. Public space have become their main place to study and rest. Michael is complaining to us about the impact of the rent increase on his life.
As rents in Sydney continue to rise, my quality of life has been significantly affected. I used to go to restaurants with my friends almost every week, but now I can only go to occasionally out to save my money. Now I cook for myself in the dormitory almost every day, which saves money, but sometimes makes me feel lonely and bored.
Some students are moving to cheaper apartments farther from campus to save on rent, but this means longer commutes. Many end up traveling during peak hours at Sydney Central stations, making their commute to school even longer. Nico has been studying in Sydney for 3 years. The increasingly high rents has forced her to start looking for apartments far away from school.
So honestly, if the rents continue to rise, I'll consider moving farther from the campus and to find a cheaper accommodation. So that's may cause a longer commute time, but it is cheaper. And also, I'll consider to find somebody to share my accommodation, and that's also means I can share the rent and the living expenses with her.
With students facing longer commute or raising rent, it's clear that accommodation options are struggling to meet demand. Let's take a closer look at who controls the student housing market and how they are planning to expand. The first chart shows the top managers like Space and Igloo, who control thousands of beds across Australia and are planning further expansions to meeting group demand. The second chart shows Unilodge as the biggest student housing provider in Australia, but there are not enough policies, so rents stay high. Professor Parson has some suggestions.
Is providing information, is providing housing advice, or helping the potential tenant to have a better understanding of how you find a suitable property and what your rights are when you get one.
As rents continue to rise, more and more students are calling for more affordable housing solutions. Both government policy interventions and private sector participation are particularly urgent. Students' voice need to be heard and their needs need to be addressed. Raising rents will continue to impact thousands of international students in Australia, and only through joint effort can we build a more supportive learning environment.